Welcome to Civility Matters, the podcast that seeks to answer that question, why you gotta be so rude? I'm your host, John O'Brien. I'm the author of the book, Rudeness Rehab, Reclaiming Civility in the Workplace and Your Home Space. And I'm very excited to be bringing this podcast to you, and this is my second of what will hopefully be many episodes. As I travel around the country and I speak to different groups, I often hear that people are concerned about the rudeness, the incivility in our society, and we'll be hearing from our guest from across the pond in Great Britain about how incivility is showing up in other parts of the world. But people ask, is it really as bad as we think? And so I would like to give you this month's startling statistic that helps to support the idea that it's not just an idea that things are getting worse. In fact, they are. Statistics say in a recent survey that 57% of workers in the US have indicated they have seriously considered leaving their jobs due to poor workplace culture. Things like gossip, fear, incivility, and blame are some of the elements, along with unrealistic work expectations and poor communication from their bosses. So people are in fact seeing significant problems with rudeness in workplaces, either from peers or from their leaders. And the question is, how are we going to turn the tide? Well, the fact that you're showing up today and showing interest in this topic means that you do have an interest in that through education and through the Civility Matters podcast. So each month I'm joined by a thought leader with expertise on a topic related to civility. And I'm that's three, very excited to be joined by this month's guest, Dr. Audrey Tang. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Tang. She's a leadership trainer, TEDx performer, speaker, a chartered psychologist, and multi-award-winning business author who focuses on practical tools for well-being. She founded Wellbeing Media Studios, broadcasting 2 shows, Mental Health Matters and Office Hours, and Mental Health Matters After Hours, globally with the 360 TV network. These and her other shows shine the light on issues related to wellness and are a visible opportunity and media support for thought leaders. Along with her coaching and practice in mental health fitness building workshops that she provides virtually and in person, she's a founder and chair of trustees at Click Arts Foundation, which is a charity that gives grants to grassroots art projects that build confidence, inclusivity, and well-being. She creates and hosted the podcast Retrain Your Brain for Success, which was a winner of Positive Change Podcast Awards, and the Wellbeing Lounge on NLive Radio, which is a winner of several awards. She also has provided psychology contributions on-screen and off-screen to Channel 4's Don't Lose Weight and The Chrissy B Show. She's a sought-after speaker, trainer, coach, and consultant who continues to give expert comment in the area of well-being to published and broadcast media. I could not be more thrilled than to welcome Dr. Audrey Tang to today's podcast. Look at that. The large studio audience is so very excited to be welcoming Dr. Tang, and there you are.
Hello, John. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to listen to me now. What a great introduction.
Excellent.
Oh, I've lost you, John. I don't know where you've gone, Doctor. There you are.
There I am. I'm back. I'd like to do this at some point in the podcast just to hide myself. It's a little bit of a stress management test, but you did a wonderful job of just going on ahead. So listen, before we get into the professional stuff, I'm curious, Dr. Tang, if you want to just share one fun fact about yourself that people may not know.
Yes, I was in Spectre, 007 Spectre. If you look at the Nine Eyes meeting, I am their head of China. So the deputy head, the man is the head.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Excellent. Wow. Well, very good. Okay, so now we have to get serious, sort of serious anyway. Tell the audience about your expertise in wellness and bringing wellness to businesses and how you came to specialize in that.
Absolutely. My background is in organizational well-being. So my PhD was on burnout and emotional labor, which is the extra task you need to do as well as knowing your job. So I studied teachers and also addressed the issue of burnout in nurses and other care professionals. And the problem there is teachers, as an example, not only need to know their subject, they need to be able to deliver the skills of teaching, but they need to do it with a smile and with compassion. And even if a child has thrown something at you, like a stool, I've had that happen. I was a secondary teacher. The next class, you have to be there, smiling, ready to go. And that emotional labor is actually partly what causes burnout in professionals. It's not that we don't want to do our jobs. In fact, we have a calling to do our jobs. But when management doesn't support that, it can create an environment where that person feels they need to hold the whole system up themselves. And that leads to stress, which leads to burnout and other issues. And so that's where I started. And I stayed teaching whilst writing up my PhD, then went to the NHS, which is our UK healthcare provider, the main one. I became a trainer with them, delivering organizational tools such as conflict management and so on, and then broke off on my own in 2014 and have been a leadership trainer and speaker and performer ever since, having authored 4 books with Pearson on well-being in organizations. And most recently, yes, I performed in TEDx talking actually about the importance of movement to our well-being.
Interesting. Wonderful. And I love what you said there, emotional labor, that's an equally important component of being an employee, is not just the task you need to do, but how you do it, right?
Yes. Absolutely. So and there's important. An expectation on you as well. So the customer service provider has to do it with a smile, and the nurse has to be there with compassion, and the teacher has to be there with kindness, and all of those things, which make it very difficult if you've had a really bad day and there's nowhere to go and relax. And what I heard from a lot of teachers is, and I'm part of this, we all went to cry in a broom cupboard somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. I come from a family of teachers myself, and I'm sure that they have been crying in broom closets in the United States as well, you know?
The whole problem is, when it comes to emotional labor, you need, like an actor, you need to be able to take off that coat and become yourself authentically. Yeah. However, certainly in the UK, staff rooms are not always the space that you can do that in. It's not safe enough because sometimes students are always just coming in, other people are there. It's very difficult. So broom cupboard was the place to go.
Yes. So what is one experience that most impacted the way that you think about work or about people at work?
I think it was actually during my PhD, which was the biggest example of how we're getting it wrong. The majority of people, I interviewed 88 people, which meant 88 long transcripts, but the majority of people significantly said that they didn't want to be king. The customer doesn't want to be king. The customer just wants their problem solved. So let's take this now so I did that back in 2012. Let's take this forward into 2026. Very recently, I was asked to give comment on why Gen Z are being given lessons in small talk and how important that is. And I said, to be honest, I think we're setting them up to fail, because at the end of the day, when you're in a customer-facing situation, small talk is not going to help if that customer is already angry. What you need is to give people the tools to fix the problem. And actually then, no matter how angry that person is, they will immediately calm and ground, because what is happening is whatever it is they needed is beginning to take shape. And so I think one of the mistakes we're making is the fact that we think it's all about being nice and being friendly and doing it with a smile and having those conversations. Oh, how are you? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And actually, I think we need to give people the tools to fix the issue. We need to train people and give them the experience and confidence to be able to say, yes, I know what you need, and I can give this to you.
That's such a great point, because what I'm thinking is, it's like, are you being helped or handled?
Yeah.
When people start sort of using small talk, hey, well, how's the weather there? You're thinking, I don't care how the weather, like, I would like my problem solved, right?
Absolutely. And that's what makes people ruder, when you don't actually match what they need. If someone has come to you, and by the time they get to you on the telephone, certainly in the UK, they've been through about 5 or 6 people. They've lost contact with you a few times because the phone's dropped out. They are already really stressed, and they've explained themselves 5 times already.
Right.
They don't want to be asked how they are because you don't want to know the answer. And so that relates to incivility. I think if we are giving people the appropriate tools,
Yes.
we reduce the amount of incivility.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I alluded at the beginning that you are one of my new friends from across the pond over in Great Britain. So people, in our country certainly are very much aware of and talk about the fact people are ruder and more challenging, and we in America like to think that, the world revolves around us and it's all us. But the thing is, the reality is, this type of rude behavior is something that I hear from people that I know in other countries. So I'm curious if you can comment what you are seeing in the UK.
What we're seeing is a lot more individual behavior. So I think this has a lot to do with social media. I think this has a lot to do with urbanization as well. Rather than the community feel that I experienced whilst I was growing up, we used to be in each other's houses. We used to just go down the street. You used to know everyone by name. Now, I know my neighbours to wave at them, but that's it. And that's now. Before that, I may not have even spoken to my neighbours, or maybe I didn't even like my neighbours sometimes. And we're seeing a lot more of that almost a societal loneliness that's creeping into normality. And I was having a conversation with a cybersecurity expert on mental health matters recently. And whilst he was talking about all of these amazing tools to change your password and don't click on links to avoid being scammed, I was beginning to think, actually, I think we've created this problem. We are getting more lonely. We are getting more individual. We are getting more, I have to protect my little area. And this means often we're not as in touch with other people. We're not checking in as much. We're not as friendly perhaps as we used to be, which means we're not looking out for other people. They're not looking out for us either. One of the things I always say in training that I deliver is, look at the baseline, and that's how you can tell somebody's getting burnt out, because their behavior changes from the baseline. But if you don't know what the baseline is in the first place because you've not looked, or you've been too busy on your phone, then we have a problem. And I know research will say that a lot of these behaviors changed. I can't remember which iPhone it was, but it was the one with the front-facing camera. With the development of that, we became a lot more narcissistic, a lot more ego-driven, a lot more look at me rather than looking out. And again, coming back to the Gen Z behaviors, it's very content-driven. I talk out at you, there's no back and forth.
Absolutely.
That's
yeah.
the thing.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's a very similar thing that we're seeing here in terms of what sometimes some people are calling a pandemic of loneliness and disconnection. And I was reading actually something about the UK that's seen as kind of a public health concern, the loneliness pandemic. So it seems like that's something that we unfortunately share in our cultures.
Yeah, it's Christmas especially, or all those times where you're supposed to get emotional labor, supposed to be happy and be with family. And because a lot of families even are getting quite fractured, and maybe people are moving away, and they have to move away because of work. It's not necessarily their fault. Or parents have to work 2 jobs, so they don't get the time to spend with their children. It's not necessarily anyone's fault, but the situation has evolved such that people are getting lonely. If you're lonely, you're going to turn to the screen because that's at least a way of getting some kind of feedback and dopamine hit. But those friends online are not necessarily friends. And there's so much research to show that seeing each other in person and touch and all of those things are so much more important, because they just make us feel good and they make us feel more connected.
Absolutely. That the connections we have in social media or even in Zoom or online are not the same. They cannot replace the physical world, right? The physical world. So let's talk about toxic positivity. I thought, oh, this is going to be such a great topic for Dr. Tang to explain to everybody, because people are like, what? Positivity can be toxic? So please tell the audience here about that.
I'm going to give you an example. So I'll ask you to do this, Dr. John. If I or a friend of yours comes up to you and goes, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm rubbish at everything, what would you say?
Well, the natural impulse is, if I take off my psychology hat, right? Let's pretend I'm a person. Then, right? I would say, oh, no, you're not. No, you are so talented. You have all these strengths. You just, good. You have to understand what that is, right?
Yes, that is toxic positivity. And the sad part is it comes from a place of love. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't allow that person the right to feel bad. What it does is it takes away that feeling. It takes away that distress, or tries to take away that distress. And I completely understand it, because if someone you love is suffering, you want to stop the suffering as much as you can. So immediately you go straight into, of course you're not, you're wonderful, you're this, you're that, you're the other. But if you have not held that opportunity for them to feel distressed, what that actually teaches that person is, maybe I don't have the right to feel distressed. Maybe my distress isn't real. Maybe this is something I need to get rid of. And that is where the toxicity comes in, because we start questioning ourselves. We start not being able to sit with distress. And actually, if someone is able to hold that space, we find ways of dealing with that distress. So the simplest response, and I know you know this as a psychologist, but I know you were being a layperson there, so thank you, is just that, I'm really sorry to hear that. Why? Tell me about this. And hold that space for that person to speak. And what you'll then find is, as you find out more information, you will find ways of collaborating together, perhaps, to make that person feel better. Yes. It's not about removing the distress. It's about sharing it with them.
Absolutely. Yes. So it's about kind of having empathy, and I think also, yes, I mean, just sometimes simply saying, wow, what's going on? Like if someone spills, versus, because those other things that I think I illustrated quite well for those, but just the idea that we want to fix it. We don't want people suffering, but ultimately it ends up backfiring.
Absolutely. And it's not just the inner work that goes wrong, because unconsciously that person begins to feel, oh, maybe I have no right to feel this way. And if you then start doing it to yourself, it's a bit like I want to lose weight, so I'm going to eat half my dinner, but there's children starving in different countries. It's very counterproductive. You have a right to feel as you do, and you will be able to find a solution for that if someone maybe can help hold that distress with you for a while. But you have to sit in that to actually realize, in the present, nothing bad is actually going to happen to you, but pushing it away causes you more problems. And so we have to hold that. But the second thing is it might teach that person, oh, I can't talk to you anymore, because you're just going to dismiss everything I've said. You haven't heard me. And given that it's all about connectivity, that I think makes us better people, and it improves our well-being. If we lose that chance to make that connection, it's really difficult to build back again. Research has shown if the moment trust is broken, changes actually happen in the brain that make us change our reaction and relationship with that person.
Yes. Now, I do want to make sure that we are not engaging in false advertising, Dr. Tang, because we also said we're going to talk about teams, right? So let's bring this topic to a team, and about how toxic positivity, or even if you want to comment just more generally on toxicity in teams.
Yes. Toxic positivity in teams can be played out quite simply by that person who's always, it doesn't matter, look on the bright side, and they're really irritating. Because it's not great, it's all gone wrong. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's actually deal with the issue at hand, not sweep it under the table. So again, it's about the validating the reality of what's happening. But then you get toxic behaviors in teams, which are completely different. There's systemic toxicity. And one really simple example of this is if you take a health and safety approach to well-being, if I walk into work and I fall down a hole, they fix the hole. They come in and they fix what went wrong. Let's put it in a psychological context. I go in and I'm burnt out. What do? They give me lessons in burnout. That's the same as giving you lessons in how to walk around a hole or how to get out of a hole once you've fallen into one. What teams actually need to do, or leaders need to do, is fix the hole.
Exactly.
Fix the system that's caused the problem in the first place. It's a bit of both. We have a responsibility. Work is not there to be our therapist, but we have a dual responsibility. I need to look after my well-being, but my organization is not there to make it worse. And so by saying to an individual, oh, you're burnt out, let me give you sessions in how to build your resilience, that's only half the battle.
Absolutely.
You need to go back and see what is the actual systemic problem here.
Now, you sort of alluded to this, but I just want to go back to highlight it, that how toxic positivity can actually be perceived as incivility, can be perceived as being rude. Could you just make that link for people?
Yeah, toxic positivity results in people feeling unheard. That in itself often gives rise to more negative behaviors, because incivility is as much not being listened to, not being your voice not being welcomed. And a toxic positivity works in the same way as a dismissal. Instead of saying, I'm not interested in what you have to say rudely, what you said is, oh, that's fine, that's not important, with a smile. And there's insincerity in that, there's a lack of understanding in that, and there's certainly a lack of connection in that. So the act of dismissal, whether it's done with a smile or with a scowl, is still incivility in its manifestation.
Yes. So making people feel invisible or dismissed or discounted. Yes. So important. So if someone is watching this and is stuck in a toxic team, what one piece of advice would you have for them?
This is really difficult because it depends on what the toxicity is. Yeah. One piece of advice would be perhaps to practice assertive phrases such as, I don't remember it that way. If somebody is trying to say that, oh, this happened, blah, blah, blah. Oh, hang on, I don't remember it that way. And a very simple version of that is, sorry, could you repeat that, please? And it's a very nice one. And I've had to deal with that because I have had to deal with racism, but it's not even calling someone out. It's just saying, I'm sorry, I thought I misheard you. Could you repeat that? And then it makes people stop and think about what they've just said. So that would be one thing you can do. But if you are being gaslit or bullied on a systemic manipulative basis, and you will know if that is the case, keep a diary of events, make sure you have that to hand so that if you do need to escalate it, then you've got the evidence in order to be able to take that further. And when it comes to escalation, be aware of your routes to escalation, because if it's your line manager, you can't escalate it to them. So there might be an HR person and so on. And I use the example that I used to teach in the NHS. For reports of fraud, you would go to the fraud team, which is nothing to do with HR. Therefore, it might be a case of, if you can't go to your line manager, instead go to your HR department and so on. And the other thing to remember, if you are in that stage of making that sort of complaint or escalating an issue, is you are, in the UK, you're allowed to have someone in that meeting with you. So don't feel you have to do that alone. And when it comes to having those times, dates and evidence, have an agenda to every meeting that you go to, because when you're emotional, it's so easy to get drawn off course, and then you start defending yourself, and actually you don't stick to the point at all. But if you've got the agenda, you know what it is you want to be talking about. So yes, 3 things there, but they all kind of equate to the same thing. It's what do we do about it once we've recognized it's happening?
Such great advice. And I think I just want to highlight one of the things that you said. It's all such great advice, but I think making sure you keep a diary or document what had happened, even if it's sending emails to your personal email, or because it's so easy, especially when multiple things are happening, to forget this happened on what day. And if you have all the evidence there in one place, it's so much easier.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So anything that I have not asked you that you think is important for the audience to know about toxicity in teams or incivility in general?
I think the key thing is to remember people don't actually want to be rude. I think fundamentally, we would love it if things were lovely and happy and genuinely positive. It takes a lot more energy to be negative than it does to just simply be at peace. Not necessarily happy all the time, but just be okay. And that's another point, is actually okay is okay. Yes. We don't have to go around being thriving and joyful the whole time. That's exhausting too. But even, and I'm not excusing bad behavior, but even the most disgruntled person would probably love a bit of relief to just be okay. And the example I would give here is when we're in an unhappy relationship, for example, everybody doesn't want to do the breakup because that's really painful. But actually, if you're still in that toxic space, you're 2 steps away from happiness, because actually the next step up is the neutral position. Mm-hmm. You've done the breakup, yes, it's neutral, but that means you're 1 step away from happiness. Yes. And that's a lot better. And with that middle step, curiosity is often your friend. I think it's really awful, again, toxic positivity, when people go, oh, look at the silver lining, or it wasn't that bad, or think of one good thing, because you really can't sometimes.
Exactly.
If you actually, in one of those low moods, just get curious and ask yourself, well, why do I feel that way? We don't even need to ask about the other person. We don't need to excuse their behavior and ask, well, why did that person do it? Why do I feel like this? Why am I so bothered by what just happened? Because what that does is it opens and unlocks a whole new dimension to your own reflection and thought process, which might give you a bit more data and feedback about yourself. But the second thing it does, just simply being curious, raises you from here to here. Yes. Which means it's a lot easier to move from that point onwards. So curiosity is a great thing, but just don't forget, actually, here is not that nice. Just climb up to okay. And that's okay.
Yes, okay is okay. I like that saying. I see that one of our listeners, Norma, has been sort of just applauding the comment that people want, the problem solved. They don't just simply want to be told, oh, hey, how's the weather? Or how are you doing? After being on hold for an hour. So hopefully there are some customer service people that are watching this. So, well, listen, we are almost at our time here for today, Dr. Tang. And I hope you might consider coming back, because this has been such a wonderful conversation.
Well, thank you for having me, and it would be an absolute pleasure.
But please tell the viewers here how they could connect with you, or where they can find out more information about you.
Yes, you can find everything you need to know on my website, which is www.draudreyt.com, and you can get in touch with me from there as well. And you can find out, I put videos on there too. So have a look there, and you can get my books and so on. And a lot of what I do is about practical tools. So that's the best place.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, listen, thank you again for your time and your wonderful energy. It's been a pleasure to have you. And I look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much. It's been really fun and a great conversation.
Yes, indeed. So, and I want to thank the audience too for taking the time out to join me here on Civility Matters. And I want to kind of wish you all well. And in closing, I invite you to recall the old question: how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? Just one. But the light bulb has to want to change. You know that one, Dr. Tang, right?
So, I know that one.
So when it comes to the tidal wave of rudeness and incivility in our society, remember, you have a choice of what kind of light bulb you want to be. Until next time, I'm John O'Brien, and remember, Civility Matters.